Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our fourth part of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We are going to jump in. When we left Sir Gawain, he had been doing that trading game with the knight, right? The lord who owned the castle, and everything he got, he gave back, except for the green belt or girdle, which he was told would protect him, right? So he didn't give that back. So he broke chivalry by not doing that. Now, we're going to pick up with New Year's Day and when Gawain needs to come finally face to face with the Green Knight once again and take his chop, right? So, if you would please open up your notes, because we're going to do our notes as I go. Here's my notes. Got mine. And then would you open up, please, your PDF of the text and scroll to page 55, all right, where it says fit the fourth. That's where we're going to pick up. And I'm flipping in my notes, and I'm getting my pen, and I'm getting my highlighter, a nice pink one, and let's get ready. Okay. Fit the fourth. Now night passes, and New Year dawns near, drawing off darkness as our deity decrees. But the wild-looking weather was about in the world. Clouds decanted their cold rain earthwards. The nithering north needled man's very nature. Creatures were scattered by the stinging sleet. Then a whip-cracking wind comes whistling between hills, driving snow into deepening drifts in the dales. Brrr. So it's a terrible, cold, windy, snowy, rainy, stormy night. And this is the night before Gawain is he thinks he's going to face his death, right? Alert and listening, Gawain lies in his bed. His lids are lowered, but he sleeps very little. As each crow of the cock brings his destiny closer, before day had dawned he was up and dressed, for the room was livened by the light of a lamp. To suit him in his mettle, and to saddle his mount, he called for a servant, who came quickly, bound from his bed-sheets, bringing his garments. He swathed Sir Gawain in glorious style. Let me go to the next here. First, fastening clothes to fend off the frost. So because it's so cold and he knows he's going to be wearing metal armor, he wants to have warm clothes underneath, which makes good sense, right? Then his armor, looked after all the while by the household, and buffed and burnished stomach and breastplates, and the rings of chainmail raked free of rust, all gleaming good as new, for which he's grateful indeed. With every polished piece, no man shone more, it seemed, from here to ancient Greece. He sent then for his steed. Okay, now look at your notes for a minute as I get comfortable again. We are getting vivid description here, right? So let's put in page 55 under vivid description. We've already highlighted that. And I think we could actually call him an heroic figure here because, he's getting all suited up for battle. So let's put 55 under heroic figures as well. Okay? And then we're going to continue reading. He clothes himself in the costliest costume, his coat with a brightly emblazoned badge mounted on velvet, magical minerals inside it, and set about it embroidered seams, a lining finished with fabulous furs, and he did not leave off the lady's lace girdle for his own good. Gawain won't forget that gift, so he puts the lady's belt on underneath all this, like above his armor, but underneath his cloak and everything. Okay, and it says it's magical, right? We get magical minerals on the badge, and then we have the magical girdle. So under romance for supernatural, I'm going to add page 50. Is this 55? Yeah, 55 as well. Okay. All right. Then, with his sword sheathed at his shapely hips, he's a good-looking guy, is Gawain, He bound himself twice around with the belt, touchingly wrapped it around his waist, so it's actually long enough to go around him twice. That green silk girdle truly suited Gawain and went well with the rich red weaves which he wore. So it's like green and red look good together, but it's a green girdle. He's going to face the Green Knight. But our man bore the belt not merely for its beauty, or the appeal of its pennants, polished though they were, or the gleam of its edges which glimmered with gold, but to save his skin when presenting himself without shield or sword to the axe, to its swing and thwack. So he's deliberately wearing this to protect his life. Now he is geared and gowned, he steps outside and thinks those nobles of renown are due his thorough thanks. So he's going to go thank the lord and the lady of the castle who've been taking such good care of him. Then his great horse Gringalot was got up ready. The steed had been stabled in comfort and safety. Oh, they've been taking good care of the nice horse Gringalot. And snorted and stamped in readiness for the ride. Gawain comes to examine his coat, saying soberly to himself, swearing on his word, "There are folk in this castle who keep courtesy to the forefront. Their master maintains them, happiness to them all, and let his lordship's lady be loved all her life. That they chose, out of charity, to cherish a guest, showing kindness and care, then may heaven's king, who reigns over all, reward them handsomely. For as long as I live in the lands of this world, I shall practice every means in my power to repay him." Then he steps in the stirrup and vaults to the saddle, and his servant lifts his shield, which he slings on his shoulder, because he's not going to travel with a shield here, so he puts it around on his shoulder. Then he girds on Gringalot with his golden spurs, who clatters from the courtyard, not stalling to snort or prance. His man was mounted too, and this man here is the guy who's going to lead him to the Green Chapel, who lugged the spear and lance. "Christ keep this castle true," he chanted. "Grant good chance." Okay, so let's go in. Let's look at our notes. We saw some elements of chivalry here, right? Where he's showing courtesy. Let's see where we can do that. Live by honor and for glory. He's saying, they paid me, so I'm going to pay them well. So this is page 56. Okay. And I think honoring women. He was very polite about the lady. So we can do that there. Okay. Under elements of romance, we've got chivalry he's showing here. So we're going to put 56 on that. Christianity. Definitely, right? And he's back on his quest. He took a side quest into the castle, a little interruption, but he's back on the main body of his quest now. So I'm going to put this under quests as well. Okay? And here we go. He's on his way. The drawbridge dropped, and the double-fronted gates were unbarred, and each half was heaved wide open. As he clears the planking, right, because the drawbridge is made of wood, so you'd hear the click, 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 click. He crosses himself quickly and praises the porter who kneels before the prince and prays that God be good to Gawain. We've got more religion here. Then he went on his way with the one whose task was to point out the road to that perilous place where the knight would receive the slaughterman's strike. So basically he knows he's going to his death. They scramble up bankings where branches were bare, clambered cliff faces crazed by the cold. The clouds which now climbed now cooled and dropped, so the moors and the mountains were muzzy with mist, and every hill wore a hat of mizzle on its head. Oh, that's great personification there. The streams on the slope seemed to fume and foam, whitening the wayside with spume and spray. They wandered onwards through the wildest woods, till the sun, at that season, came skyward, showing its hand. On the hilly heights they ride, snow littering the land. The servant at his side then has them slow and stand. So we get some great description there. And if you want to add that to your vivid description, you can. But we really feel how cold and how rocky and how hilly this terrain is that they're going through. Okay, and so the servant asked him to slow down, and then they stop. I have accompanied you across this countryside, my lord, and now we are nearing the site you have named, and have steered and searched for with such singleness of mind. But there is something I should like to share with you, sir, because upon my life, you're a lord that I love. So if you value your health, you'll hear my advice. The place you head for holds a hidden peril. In that wildness lives a wild man, the worst in the world. He is brooding and brutal and loves bludgeoning humans. He's more powerful than any person alive on this planet, and 4 times the figure of any fighting knight in King Arthur's castle, Hector included. So he's heard about Hector. And it's at the Green Chapel where this grisliness goes on. And to pass through that place unscathed is impossible, for he deals out death blows by the dint of his hands, a man without measure who shows no mercy, be it chaplain or churl who rides by his church, monk or priest, whatever man or person, he loves murdering more than he loves his own life. So I say, just as sure as you sit in your saddle to find him is fatal, Gawain. That's a fact. Trust me, he could trample you 20 times over or more. He's lurked about too long, engaged in grief and gore. His hits are swift and strong. He'll fell you to the floor. So banish that boogeyman to the back of your mind, and for God's sake, travel an alternative track. Ride another road and be rescued by Christ. Okay, so he's really getting a huge warning from this servant, like this is a bad place to go. This guy is supernatural. He's dangerous. So we can add that in, right, under supernatural. So pages 57, 58. And I think we could probably enter this under vivid description, right? Now, basically, Gawain is getting a chance to turn away, right? He could say, oh, well, you know what? You're right. You warned me. It's dangerous. Let me not go. I'm going to go somewhere else. And so pay attention to whether Gawain finishes what he starts, right? And turns his back, or whether he continues on. So this is still the servant talking, and we're on the top of page 58. The servant isn't going to go with him the rest of the way. He's basically brought him as far as he's going to go. We're on line 21. I'll head home, and with hand on heart I shall swear by God and all his good saints, and on all earthly holiness and other such oaths, that your secret is safe, and not a soul will know that you fled in fear from the fellow I described. So he's giving Gawain an out and promising never to tell. Many thanks, said Gawain in a terse tone of voice, and for having my interests at heart, be lucky. I'm certain such a secret would be silent in your keep. But as faithful as you are, if I failed to meet him and lost my medal in the manner you mentioned, I'd be christened a coward, and could not be excused. So I'll trek to the chapel and take my chances, have it out with that ogre, speak openly to him, whether fairness or foulness follows, however fate behaves. He may be stout and stern, and standing armed with stave, but those who strive to serve our Lord will save. Okay, so Gawain is going to finish what he starts. So you can put page 58 there. And he's like, I'm sure you wouldn't tell, but I would know that I was a coward, and everybody else would know I was a coward. And he's basically, right, giving himself to the Lord. He's saying, God will save me if it's meant to be. So I'm going to put that under Christianity. However, Gawain knows something that the servant doesn't know. Gawain knows he has that magic belt. So he's not just trusting in God. He's also trusting in that supernatural belt. Don't forget that. He's not 100% being honest here. Okay. Sorry. Lost my place for a second. There we go. "By Mary," said the servant, "you seem to be saying you're hell-bent on heaping harm on yourself and losing your life, so I'll delay you no longer. Set your helmet on your head and your lance in your hand, and ride that route through the rocky ravine till you're brought to the bottom of that foreboding valley. Then look towards a glade a little to the left, and you'll see in the clearing the site itself, and the hulking Superman who inhabits the place. Now God bless and goodbye, brave Sir Gawain. For all the wealth in the world I wouldn't walk with you, or go further in this forest by a single footstep." With a wrench on the reins he reeled around and heel-kicked the horse as hard as he could, and was gone from Gawain, galloping hard for home. "By Christ, I will not cry," announced the knight, "or groan, but find good fortune by the grace of God alone." Okay, now Gawain is by himself. The servant ran off. And Gawain actually has to tell himself, I am not going to cry. So he is feeling scared. He's feeling overwhelmed. He doesn't want to go do this, but he's going to do it anyway because he feels like he has to keep his promise. He has to be brave. But he's feeling those feelings, and we completely understand those, right? Then he presses ahead, picks a path, enters a steep-sided grove on his steed. So a grove is a bunch of horses, but he's in a valley, so a bunch of horses, a bunch of trees on the sides of a valley. Then goes by and by to the bottom of a gorge, where he wonders and watches. It looks a wild place. No sign of settlement anywhere to be seen, but heady heights to both halves of the valley, and set with saber-toothed stones of such sharpness no cloud in the sky could escape unscathed. He stalls and halts, holds the horse still, glances side to glimpse the green chapel, but sees no such thing, which he thinks is strange. So he stopped where the servant told him to go, and there's no green chapel here. Except at mid-distance, what might be a mound? A sort of bald knoll on the bank of a brook, where fell water surged with frenzied force, bursting with bubbles as if it had boiled. So he's like looking for a church. And there's no church here. There's no settlement. There's no houses. There's no nothing. But a little ways away, on the bank of the river, is a mound of like earth, and that's green. Almost like think of like an igloo, something like that kind of shape, but it's like got grass and stuff growing over it, and it's on the base of the river, and the water is boiling up around it and bubbling around it. So whatever this place is, it's not like a man-made place. It's super ancient. He heels the horse, heads for that mound, grounds himself gracefully, and tethers Gringolet, looping the reins to the limb of a lime. Then he strides forward and circles the feature, baffled as to what the bizarre hill could be. It had a hole at one end and at either side, and its walls, matted with weeds and moss, enclosed a cavity like a kind of old cave or crevice in the crag. It was all too unclear to declare. Okay, this is a very weird thing. It's like a building almost, but it's round, and there's moss and stuff growing up around it, and it's green and it's slimy, and it's like a cave. So there's holes at both ends, almost like doors or windows, but inside is hollow. It's very weird, and he can't figure it out. Green church? chunters the knight. More like a devil's lair, where at the nub of night he makes his morning prayer. Oh, so he's like, maybe this isn't a church, but maybe it's where the devil goes? Okay, so he's like thinking supernatural here, right? For certain, he says, this is a soulless spot, a ghostly cathedral overgrown with grass, the kind of kirk where that camouflaged man might deal in devilment and all things dark. My 5 senses inform me that Satan himself has tricked me in this tryst, intending to destroy me, This is a haunted house. May it go to hell. I never came across a church so cursed. So he is really getting worked up about this, and he really feels creepy. He feels like he's been lured here by the devil to be killed. He's just completely freaked out. So let's take a look. What page are we on? 59. So under supernatural, let's put page 59. Okay. And maybe in vivid description too, because we're really getting to see what this looks like. Okay. So I'm going to scroll down. With head helmeted and lance in hand, he scrambled to the skylight of that strange abyss. So he's getting on top of it, almost. And then he heard on the hillside, from behind a hard rock and beyond the brook, a blood-chilling noise. What? It cannoned through the cliffs as if they might crack, like the scream of a scythe being ground on a stone. What? It whined and wailed like a water wheel. What? It rasped and rang raw in the ear. My God, cried Gawain, that grinding is a greeting. My arrival is honored by the honing of an axe. Up there. Then let the Lord decide. Oh, well, won't help me here. I might well lose my life, but freak sounds hold no fear. He's trying to calm himself down. What he's hearing is the sound of an axe being ground sharp. Now, if you've ever done woodworking or worked out in a shop, you might know that sound, or if you've watched woodworking on television. The other way you might know that sound is if you are familiar with people who cook and they sharpen their knives, right? And they take a piece of metal, usually a rough piece of metal, and they grind it or strike it against the knife blade, and it makes a metal on metal grinding sound. Now, they used to grind them on stones. You'd get a whetstone, which literally is a stone that turns, and you put water on it to lubricate it, and you'd grind the metal against it to sharpen it. So this is the sound he's hearing, which is a horrible sound to start with. And now he's hearing it, and he knows that the axe that's being sharpened is the one that's going to be used to cut off his head. Okay. Super creepy, right? But Gawain is very brave, and he's like, sounds can't hurt you, sounds can't hurt you. Then Gawain called as loudly as his lungs would allow, who has power in this place to honor his pact? Because good Gawain now walks on this ground. Whoever will meet him should emerge this moment, and he needs to be fast. It's now or it's never. Gawain's like, I'm here. Abide, came a voice from above the bank. You'll cop what's coming to you quickly enough. Then he went at his work, whetting the blade, not showing till it was sharpened and stropped. Then out of the crags he comes, through the cave mouth, whirling into view with a wondrous weapon, a Danish-style axe for doling out death. If any of you have played like the Viking video games, or you've seen them, it's the Danish-style axe. It's a double-headed axe with a brute of a blade curving back to the haft. No, I'm sorry, not double-headed. It's one head, but it curves around. Filed on a stone, a 4-footer at least, by the look of the length of its shining lace. And again, he was green, like a year ago, with green hair and flesh and a fully green face, and firmly on green feet he stomped forwards. The handle of that axe like a staff in his hand. At the edge of the water he will not wade, but vaults the stream with the shaft. So he actually uses like the axe handle as a vaulting post to get over the water so he doesn't get his feet wet, and strides with an ominous face onto earth covered over with snow. Our brave knight bowed, his head hung, but not too low. So he's like showing respect, but he's not showing fear. Young sir, the green man said, your visit keeps your vow. Oh, it's all good now. Okay, So, can we do some, let's see, what else can we put in our notes here? How about finishing what you start and keeping faith? Because that is exactly what Gawain just did, right? Okay. And you know what? I'm going to put this in adventure because I think this is definitely adventure-y. Okay. Oh, you know what? And should we do our quest? Should we add this to the quest? Because this is the end of his quest, right? He's finally found it. The Green Knight spoke again. God guard you, Gawain. Welcome to my world after all your wandering. You have timed your arrival like a true traveler to begin this business which binds us together. Last year, at this time, what was yielded became yours. The axe, remember. And with New Year came, you are called to account. We're very much alone. Beyond view in this valley, no person to part us. We can do as we please. Put your helmet from your head and take what you're owed. Show no more struggle than I showed myself when you severed my spine with a single smite. Okay, so he's like, take off your and take what's coming to you. No, said good Gawain, by my life-giving God, I won't gripe or begrudge the grimness to come. So keep to one stroke, and I'll stand stock still. Won't whisper a word of unwillingness or one complaint. He bowed to take the blade, and bared his neck and nape. But loath to look afraid, he feigned a fearless state. Feigned means faked or pretended. He is incredibly scared, but he's not going to show it. So he's pretending he's not scared. So he's bent over, right? And he's taken his helmet off and he's cleared his neck, and he's going to take this chop. Suddenly, the Green Knight summons up his strength, hoists the axe high over Gawain's head, lifts it aloft with every fiber of his life, and begins to bring home a blood-splitting blow. Had he seen it through as thoroughly as threatened, the man beneath him would have met with his maker. But, glimpsing the axe in the edge of his eye, bringing death earthwards as it arced through the air, and sensing its sharpness, Gawain shrank at the shoulders. Okay, so I'm going to stand up for this. So, hello. Here, the Green Knight has his axe, right? And he's like this, and he's about to bring it down. But Gawain, who's here, sees out of the corner of his eye the axe coming down, and he flinches. He can't help himself, right? I mean, you do the same thing if someone was swinging at you with an axe. He's really, really trying to be brave, but he just involuntarily goes and brings his shoulders up. Okay? But he said he wouldn't, remember? The swinging axeman swerved from his stroke and reproached the young prince with piercing words. So he pulls up, right? He's about to bring that axe down, and as he swings it, Gawain flinches and he stops swinging it. Call yourself good Sir Gawain, he goaded, who faced down every foe in a field of battle, but now flinches with fear at the foretaste of harm? Never have I known such a namby-pamby knight. Did I budge or even blink when you aimed the axe, or carp or quibble in King Arthur's castle, or flap when my head went flying to my feet? But entirely untouched, you are terror-struck. I'll be found the better fellow since you were so feeble and frail. So he's taunting him for flinching, which is kind of unfair, really. It isn't voluntary when you flinch. Okay, but Gawain does take it. Gawain confessed, I flinched at first, but will not fail. Though once my head's unhitched, it's off once for all. Gawain's like, look, just because you got your head back doesn't mean I will, right? Once you cut off my head, I'm dead. But I won't flinch again. Okay, so where can we put that? Maybe finish what you started, or speaking the truth. Okay, in 61. I'm going to put it under to speak the truth and to finish what you start. Okay. And I'm going to put it under memorable deeds as well, because I think this is pretty memorable. Okay. So the Green Knight's going to have another go. Oh, sorry, that was my notification telling me I have a meeting coming up. Okay, here we go. So, be brisk with the blow. Bring on the blade. Deal me my destiny and do it out of hand, and I will stand the stroke without shiver or shudder or be wasted by your weapon. You have my word. Okay, so it is keeping his promises. Take this then, said the other, throwing up the axe, menacing the young man with the gaze of a maniac. So he's going to hit him again. Then he launches his swing, but leaves him unscathed, withholds his arm before harm could be done. So he pulls up before he hits him. And Gawain was motionless, never moved a muscle. So he kept his promise, but stood stone still, or as still as a tree stump anchored in the earth by 100 roots. So you could put there, he keeps his promises on page 61. Then the warrior in green mocked Gawain again. That doesn't seem fair. He did what he said, and now he's getting mocked again. Now you've plucked up your courage, I'll dispatch you properly. May the honorable knighthood heaped on you by Arthur, if it proves to be powerful, protect your pretty neck. That insulting slur drew a spirited response. Get hacking then, head-banger. Your threats are hollow. Such huffing and fussing, you'll frighten your own heart. By God, said the Green Man, since you speak so grandly, there'll be no more shilly-shallying. I shall shatter you right now. He stands to strike, a sneer from bottom lip to brow. Who'd fault Gawain if fear took hold? All hope is down. Hoisted and aimed, the axe hurtled downwards, the blade bearing down on the knight's bare neck, a ferocious blow, but far from being fatal, it skewed to one side, just skimming the skin and finally snicking the fat of the flesh. So that bright red blood shot from body to earth. Seeing it shining on the snowy ground, Gawain leapt forward a spear's length at least, grabbed hold of his helmet and rammed it on his head, brought his shield to his side with a shimmy of his shoulder, and then brandished his sword before blurting out brave words, because never since birth, as his mother's babe, was he half as happy as here and now. Okay, so what happened was, he's bent down to take the blow, right? And he's not looking at it because he doesn't want to move. He doesn't want to flinch, so he's not looking at it. So he's looking down at the ground, right? Okay, so the Green Man takes the axe and hits him with it, but he moves the axe, and so instead of going clean through here, right, he just slices a little bit. So Gawain is bleeding, and he's got a cut, but his head is nowhere near cut off. And when he looks at the ground and he sees the blood, he realizes he's been cut, but he isn't dead. He jumps backwards and grabs his helmet on, grabs his sword, and suddenly he is like, whoo, because he's alive. And he has taken the blow without flinching. The fact he isn't dead, this guy got one blow. One blow was all they agreed to. If he tries to hit him again, Gawain's going to fight him, because their deal is now equal, right? Enough swiping, sir. You've swung your last swing. I've borne one blow without backing out. Go for me again, and you'll get some by return with interest. Hit out, or be hit in an instant and hard. One axe attack, that's all. Now keep the covenant agreed in Arthur's hall and hold the axe in hand. So Gawain's ready to fight. He's like, you hit me. I promised you one hit. You got one hit. You hit me again. I'm hitting you back and even harder. So put the axe down or be prepared to fight. Okay, so what can we do here? What can we put in our notes for page 62? Well, definitely a memorable deed and a plot twist, because we totally expected Gawain to get killed but he hasn't been. So there's a plot twist. And I think the not refusing a challenge, because he didn't, he was really, really brave here, right? And finishing what you start. And I would say never turn your back on a foe, because he had his head down to take the blow, but now that he actually is going to have to fight him, he's fighting him face to face, right? The warrior steps away and leans on his weapon, props the handle in the earth and slouches on the head, and studies how Gawain is standing his ground, bold in his bearing, brave in his actions, armed and ready. So these guys have really different stances, right? Gawain has his sword out, his shield is up, right? He's shield, sword, there we go. He's ready to go. He's like on his toes, ready to go. The Green Knight is leaning on the axe. Like the axe, that the wooden part of the axe is on the ground, and he's just like leaning on it. In his heart, he admires him. With volume but less violence in his voice, he replied with reaching words which rippled and rang. Be a mite less feisty, fearless young fellow. No insulting or heinous incident has happened beyond the game we agreed on in the court of your king. One strike was promised. Consider it served. From any lingering loyalties you are hereby released. Had I mustered all my muscles into one mighty blow, my axe would have dealt you your death, without doubt. But my first strike fooled you, a feint, no less, not fracturing your flesh, which was only fair, in keeping with the contract we declared that first night. For, with truthful behavior, you honored my trust, and gave up your gains as a good man should. Then I missed you once more, and this for the morning when you kissed my pretty wife, then kindly kissed me. So twice you were truthful, therefore twice I left no scar. The person who repays will live to feel no fear. Wait, what? Twice you kissed my wife, then you kissed me, and you were... The Green Man is the Lord of the Castle. It's the same guy. Plot twist. Let's put that in plot twist. 63. I'm putting a couple of exclamation marks on that one. It's the same guy. So he's like, you flinched, yeah, but I faked a blow the first time because you kept your promise and you gave me back the kiss from my wife. And I held my blow the second time because, again, you kept your promises and you gave back everything you got. The third time, though, you strayed. So he knows he didn't keep his promise and felt my blade, therefore, because the belt you are bound with belongs to me. It was woven by my wife, so I know it very well, and I know of your courtesies and conduct and kisses and the wooing of my wife, for it was all my work. Dude set Gawain up. He was set up this whole time. So when he was out hunting, he knew exactly what his wife was doing. She was tempting Gawain on his purpose. Like, this has all been a setup for Gawain. I sent her to test you. And in truth, it turns out you're by far the most faultless fellow on earth. So at least he passed the test. As a pearl is more prized than a pea which is white, so by God is Gawain amongst gallant knights. But a little thing more, it was loyalty that you lacked. Not because you're wicked or a womanizer or worse, but because you loved your own life. So I blame you less. So he's like, you didn't keep your promise. You didn't give me back that green belt. But you didn't do it because you were in love with my wife, and you didn't do it because you weren't loyal. You did it, or because you were bad. You did it because you love your own life and you didn't want to die. And he's like, and that's forgivable. Gawain stood speechless. Well, yeah, no kidding. For what seemed like a century, so shocked and ashamed that his stomach churned and the fire of his blood brought flames to his face. So he's blushing, his stomach hurts, he's ashamed of himself, and he wriggled and writhed at the other man's words. Then he tried to talk, and finding his tongue, said, "A curse upon cowardice and covetousness. They breed villainy and vice and destroy all virtue." And he grabbed the girdle and ungathered its knot and flung it in fury at the man in front. "My downfall and undoing, let the devil take it." So he takes off the thing. "Dread of the death blow and cowardly doubts meant I gave in to greed, and in doing so forgot the fidelity and kindness which every knight knows. As I feared, I am found to be flawed and false through treachery and untruth. I have totally failed," said Gawain. Okay, and some of you guys really, you understand this feeling, right? Someone calls you up on a mistake that you made, and you feel like because you made one mistake, you completely failed. And this is how Gawain feels. So we can talk about the fealty and the kindness, like he was really, really trying, but he knows that by keeping the belt and valuing his own life over honesty, he feels like he failed in chivalry, and he's a failed knight, and he failed his test. "Such terrible mistakes, and I shall bear the blame. But tell me what it takes to clear my clouded name." So he's like, okay, what do I have to do to make up for this? The Green Lord laughed and leniently replied, "The harm which you caused is wholly healed. By confessing your failings, you are free from fault, and have openly paid penance at the point of my axe. I declare you purged, as polished and as pure as the day you were born, without blemish or blame." Oh. Ooh. That's interesting. And the repetition. Okay. Remember when Gawain went to confession before he left the castle at the end of part 3, when he knew he was going to face his death in the morning? He went to confession, and the language we saw was like that he was as clean and pure as the day he was born. And here but we know he didn't confess about the green girdle. But here now he has, and the Green Knight is giving him absolution and forgiveness because he confessed and he said he was sorry, and his penance, right, what he had to do to make up for it, right? And usually you go to confession and you have to say prayers or something like that as your penance. His penance is the cut he took on the neck, like the small cut he has. So he's already done. So the Green Knight's like, you've done your penance. You are forgiven for your lie about the green girdle. "And this gold-hemmed girdle I present you as a gift, which is green like my gown. It's yours, Sir Gawain, a reminder of our meeting when you mix and mingle with princes and kings. And this keepsake will be proof to all chivalrous knights of your challenge in this chapel. But follow me home. New Year's far from finished. We'll resume our reveling with supper and song." Okay, so he's like, keep the girdle. Use it to remind you of our meeting and to prove to the other knights you kept this challenge. Okay, so where can we add? We're on page 64. What can we add? Definitely plot twist, right? Memorable deeds, I think. I think living by honor and glory. Speaking the truth, because that's like what sets him free. So that's a big one. And then we have that weird connection, and I'm going to put it under like between Christianity and supernatural. I'm going to say confession to Green Knight, page 64, because that's like the supernaturalness of the Green Knight and the confession of in the Christianity coming together. It's like a merge point. Okay, so he's invited him back home. Is Gawain going to want to go back to his house? I'm not sure I would. What's more, my wife is waiting there, who flummoxed you before. This time you'll have in her a friend and not a foe. Okay, so now that he's passed the challenge, she's not going to be coming on to him, and he's not going to have to walk that fine line. Thank you, said the other, taking helmet from head, holding it in hand as he offered his thanks. But I've loitered long enough. The Lord bless your life, and bestow on you such honor as you surely deserve. And mind you commend me to your mannerly wife, both to her and the other, those honorable ladies who kidded me so cleverly with their cunning tricks. But no wonder if a fool should fall for a female and be wiped of his wits by womanly guile. It's the way of the world. So Gawain is actually doing something a little bit tacky here. He's kind of blaming the lady, the young lady and the old lady. He's like, it's no wonder I fell for their tricks, because women be tricky, yo. And then he's going to use the Bible to support that. So we can put what he's saying here on page 64 under Christianity. I'm not sure it would belong under honoring women, though. Where was I? It's no wonder. It's the way of the world. Adam fell for a woman, and Solomon for several. And as for Samson, Delilah was his downfall, and afterwards David was bamboozled by Bathsheba and bore the grief. Okay, I don't think Bathsheba was to blame for David killing her husband and then marrying her just because he saw her in the bath. Like, that's not her fault. Delilah, fair enough, but I don't think the David Bathsheba one is fair. All wrecked and ruined by their wrongs. If only we could love our ladies without believing their lies. Gawain, you and I need to have a conversation here. And those were fellows from fortunate families, excellent beyond all others existing under heaven. He cried, yet all were charmed and changed by wily womankind. I suffered just the same, so clear me of my crime. Okay, he's blaming her for his thing. Was she involved? Yes. Was she tricking him? Yes. Was it still up to him to say he took the girdle and give it back? Yes. But the girdle, he went on. God bless you for this gift. Not for all its ore will I own it with honor, nor its silks and streamers, and not for the sake of its wonderful workmanship, or even its worth, but as a sign of my sin. So I'm going to keep the girdle, but not because it's fancy or beautiful, but as a sign that I did wrong. I'll see it as such when I swagger in the saddle, a sad reminder that the frailty of his flesh is man's biggest fault. So loving your own life and protecting your own life is your biggest fault. How the touch of filth taints his tender frame. When my pulse races with passion and pride, one look at this Lovelace will lessen my ardor. But I will ask one thing, if it won't offend. Since I spent so long in your lordship's land and was hosted in your house, let him reward you, who upholds the heavens and sits on high. Will you make known to me your name, and I'll ask nothing else. So he's been in this guy's land. He doesn't even know his name. Then I'll tell you the truth, the other told him. Here in my homelands, they call me Bertilac la Haute Desert, and in my manor lies the mighty Morgan Le Fay. Oh, remember her from the intro video? So adept and adroit at the dark arts, who learned magic from Merlin, the master of mystery. For in earlier times she was intimately intertwined with that knowledgeable man, as all you knights know back home. Yes, Morgan the goddess, I will announce her name. There is no nobleness she cannot take and tame. So he thinks she's amazing. And so he's Bertilac, and the old lady in his house is Morgan Le Fay. She guided me in this guise to your great hall, to put pride on trial, and to test with this trick what distinction and trust the round table deserves. Oh, another plot twist. So, page 65, another plot twist. Bertilac didn't do this by himself. He was put up to this whole thing by Morgan Le Fay the whole time. She, the old lady, has been pulling the strings. And we can add her to the supernatural as well. She imagined the mischief that would muddle your minds, and that grieving Guinevere would go to her grave at the sight of a spectre, making ghostly speeches with his head in his hands before the high table. Okay, so this whole thing, part of the plan here was to test the knights, and part of the plan was to scare Guinevere so bad when the knight got his head chopped off that Guinevere would die from fright. So part of this plan was a plot to murder Guinevere. It's not a very good plot, but so that ancient woman who inhabits my home is also your aunt, Arthur's half sister. Yeah, remember, Uncle Arthur is his uncle. So Morgan Le Fay is Gawain's aunt. The daughter of the Duchess of Tintagel, the duchess who through Uther was mother to Arthur your king. So I ask you again, come and greet your aunt, and make merry in my house. You are much loved there, by me more than most. For as God be my maker, your word holds more worth than most anyone in this world. But Gawain would not go. No way would he go. Oh, yeah, I wouldn't either, would you? So they clasped and kissed and made kindly commendations to the Prince of Paradise, and then parted in the cold, that pair. Our man, back on his mount, now hurtles home from there. The Green Knight leaves his ground and wanders who knows where. So he winds through the wilds of the world once more, Gawain on Gringelot by the grace of God, under a roof sometimes, and sometimes roughing it, in valleys and vales, had adventures and victories, but time is too tight to tell how they went. The nick to his neck was healed by now. Thereabouts he had bound the belt like a baldric, slantwise as a sash, from shoulder to side, laced in a knot looped below his left arm. Okay, so he put the green belt, instead of around his waist, he put it across his chest and knotted it under his left arm. A sign that his honor was stained by sin. So safe and sound he sets foot in court, and when clansmen had learned of their comrade's return, happiness cannoned through the echoing halls. The king kissed his knight, and so did the queen, and Gawain was embraced by his band of brothers, who made eager inquiries, and he answered them all, with the tale of his trial and tribulations, and the challenge at the chapel, and the great green chap and the love of the lady which led to the belt, and he showed them the scar at the side of his neck, confirming his breach of faith like a badge of blame. So he actually tells them the whole story, and he doesn't avoid telling them what he did that was bad. Like, he's showing them everything. He grimaced with disgrace. He writhed in rage and pain. Blood flowed toward his face and showed his smarting shame. So he's being honest in this. So I'm going to put in 66, I'm going to put to speak the truth. Because he really is like, he's coming out with it. He's telling his whole thing. Regard, said Gawain, grabbing the girdle. Through this I suffered a scar to my skin. For my loss of faith I was physically defaced. What a coveting coward I became, it would seem. I was tainted by untruth, and this its token. The green sash. I will drape across my chest until the day I die. For a man's crimes can be covered, but never made clean. Once entwined with sin, the man is twinned for all time. The king gave comfort. Then laughter filled the castle, and in friendly accord the company of the court allowed that each knight belonging to their order, every knight in the brotherhood, should bear such a belt. A bright green belt worn obliquely to the body, crosswise like a sash, for the sake of this man. So all the other knights say if he's going to wear his belt as honor and shame to remind him of his own frailty, they will too. So they're not going to let him stand out by himself. So this is like a good thing of brotherhood here. So that slanting green stripe was adopted as their sign, and each knight who held it was honored forever. As all meaningful writings on romance remind us, an adventure which happened in the era of Arthur, as the chronicles of this country have stated clearly. Since fearless Brutus first set foot on these shores, since the siege and assault of Troy has ceased, our coffers have been crammed with stories such as these. Now let our Lord, thorn-crowned, bring us to perfect peace. Amen. And then it ends, One soit qui mal pense. And that is the end of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Okay, so 2 things. 1, finish your notes, and then go into Schoology and do your discussion question. 2, a little bit of bonus extra credit. If you can message me in Schoology or on Remind or via text, okay? I don't want you to put it on Schoology, like, don't put it where other kids can see it. Message it directly to me. I want you to find out what that Latin phrase at the end means, and I will give you extra credit. All right? Until then, bye everybody.